Well, the sad, unfortunate fact that stood out the most is that 9 people at least have died as a result of this weather event. And the governor saying yesterday he expects that number to grow as the days move on. This has been an all hands on response from the state. The governor mentioning yesterday that there have been more than 1,000 water rescues so far. The big message from officials right now is to avoid driving if you can. Emergency crews need clear roadways to be able to access some of the more remote parts of the state. In addition, the governor and state emergency management officials are asking people to avoid calling 911 unless they are in legitimate danger. If you're in need of non-emergency assistance, you're encouraged to call 502-607-6665. Again, that is 502-607-6665. Some good news from state officials is President Donald Trump has already granted federal assistance for the storm, something the governor says is going to be crucial towards recovery.
Federal assistance is going to be absolutely necessary on the state and the local government side. Think about the damages that we're going to have to our roads, which we're already seeing, the mudslides, our water and wastewater systems. Those will all be in the millions.
And one other thing that stood out a lot to me was the number of state and federal roads that have been closed in various forms or fashions because of the floodwaters, more than 300. And I'll give you one example here in Frankfort. I don't know if this is 100% a state or federal road, but this is right off the Kentucky River by Bridge Street, by St. Clair Street. And the water is slowly moving up this boat ramp, at least 50% of the way up so far. And it's already not even 5 a.m. You can see trees are getting fully covered up by the water. The water level up by the bridge is slowly getting higher and higher by that Singing Bridge. It can be very, very dangerous. So if you're going out today or in the next few days where the water level is expected to continue to rise as we see more and more winter accumulation move in across the state, the governor is saying, please just stay home. Stay home if you can. If you're going to check in on people, call them instead of trying to go out and find them yourselves, because at the end of the day, we do not want to see more loss of life. Remember, very important, turn around, don't drown. Live in Frankfort, Tyler Melito, Fox 56 News. And in addition to those state high water crews, roughly 150 soldiers and airmen from the Kentucky National Guard, as well as crew members from other states, are on the ground working to rescue people who are trapped by the flooding in various parts of the state. Currently, there are 12 emergency shelters open and operating in 9 different counties. Those including Breathitt, Harlan, Knott, Lawrence, Leslie, Letcher, Martin, Magoffin, and Wolfe counties. Several state parks are housing people impacted by the storms as well, including Jenny Wiley State Park, which has more than 140 people staying there currently, and there have been discussions about opening more state parks. The problem is right now, people can't get to those areas because of the floodwaters on the roads. The state is also working with folks who have loved ones in hospitals that were evacuated. While the state remains in the response phase, emergency management officials are encouraging folks to take note of any damage they are experiencing.
Anyone that has damage, please document your damage. Before you start making those immediate repairs, document your damage, have that ready to present. We will be requesting that assistance on your behalf from the state to the White House. And as we do those things, we need to be able to paint that picture that shows how impactful this storm was to you and your family, or to your city, or to your county. And that process is very difficult. So document well, and as we'll be coming through and collecting those damage assessments after this event, after the rescue moves into recovery, we'll start that recovery process, and there will be a typical process of damage assessments, doing those things that are needed to take care of you in the long haul.
2 other points before we go. State Emergency Management Director and other officials have been saying that thousands of people are without water currently. They're working to get water to those individuals so that way they can live as best they can if they're not having to be evacuated. And for people that are willing to donate, Vasi mentioned the emergency relief fund that Governor Beshear and his office has set up. And again, we have that link inside the story on fox56news.com later on this morning. And for people who are willing to donate physical donations, whether it be non-perishable food items, water, and things like that, the state is working to set up distribution centers, but at that time they do not have a lot of information as they are still in that response phase to this weather event. Live in Frankfort, Tyler Melito, Fox 56 News. That's right, Krista and Paul, good morning. It is a sad fact that 9 Kentuckians at least will not be waking up this morning. They have died as a result of this weather event. And Governor Andy Beshear yesterday not mincing any words when he expects that number to continue to increase over the course of the next few days. This has been an all hands-on response from the state. The governor mentioning there have been more than 1,000 water rescues so far. The big message from officials right now is to avoid driving if you can. Emergency crews need clear roadways to be able to access some of the more remote parts of the state. In addition, the governor and state emergency management are asking people to avoid calling 911 unless they are in legitimate danger. If you need non-emergency assistance, you're encouraged to call 502-607-6665. Again, that is 502-607-6665. Some good news from state officials is President Trump has already granted federal assistance for these storms, something the governor says is going to be crucial in recovery.
Federal assistance is going to be absolutely necessary on the state and the local government side. Think about the damages that we're going to have to our roads, which we're already seeing, the mudslides, our water and wastewater systems. Those will all be in the millions.
And something the governor also mentioned is that currently there are more than 300 state and federal roads that are blocked off in various levels because of rising floodwaters. And here in Frankfort, here's one example. Here's a boat ramp right off St. Clair Street by Bridge Street from the Kentucky River. The water is slowly continuing to rise up here in Frankfort. So I'd say it's about 50% the way up of this boat ramp so far. And the water level, just look at it here right by the bridge, how close it is to the peak of the bridge right now. I'm looking over, there's a parking lot right next to where I am, and the water is slowly creeping up into that as well. It is a very, very dangerous time right now. So if you're going to be outside today, again, we've been saying it, do not go out if you don't have to, but if you are going to be out, just be extra careful. Remember, turn around, don't drown. Coming up at 7 o'clock, I'll be speaking with the State Emergency Management Director, Eric Gibson, to learn more about where things currently stand as the state continues to respond to this storm. Live in Frankfort, Tyler Melito, Fox 56 News. Good morning, Krista and Paul. I am joined by Director Eric Gibson of Kentucky Emergency Management. Thank you so much for taking just a little bit of time out of your morning. What has this last few hours been like for you all overnight as we get into the start of a new work week?
Well, absolutely. This has been a very busy time, as you might expect. Many of our crews have been running on this disaster now for at least 48 hours straight. We've got ongoing rescues still going on in eastern Kentucky. We've been working with all of those counties over there as we just try to continue to figure out where they need our teams to go in and help them at. So we continue to push that. We'll continue all throughout the day today as we continue to reach those people that need assistance.
What are the areas that you're seeing need the most assistance right now as we're still in that recovery phase?
Absolutely. Well, Martin County is definitely on our list. The Tug Fork River has just about reached its crest, but there at the Tug Fork, north of Pikeville up into Martin County, all along that area is definitely our concern right now.
I was just told you spoke with Governor Andy Beshear a moment ago. What has he been saying to you, and what have you been saying to him as you all kind of set a game plan for these next 24 or so hours?
Right. Well, I think the governor would tell you that, what we're doing, continue to do everything we possibly can to reach our people, to make sure that we're getting the resources to the people that need it, continue to get the resources in from the federal government. They've been very much ready to help. They come in very, very quickly with the FEMA assets. We brought in teams from We brought in FEMA teams from Indiana. We have teams in from Ohio. We have teams in from Missouri. So we brought in several FEMA assets to help assist us in this recovery. And as we work through this disaster, that's always been the way he's about these disasters, is take care of the people of Kentucky, whatever you need to do.
Looking ahead to the next couple of days, we'll have a little bit of calm before the next winter storm, more snow Wednesday or so. How does that pose a challenge into how you all prepare to respond to this, what's coming up, and get people out and get people safe?
Right. Well, so you're talking about the next event that's coming in on Wednesday. Secretary Gray was on the call with the governor and I this morning as we went through, the paces for what our transportation crews are facing. Obviously, many roads are closed across the Commonwealth right now with debris, mud, water inundated. So lots of issues there. But then we also have the major thoroughfares as we experience another significant snowfall by Wednesday. That those same guys that are doing that debris removal are going to be the ones that are going to have to be scraping and salting. So those transportation crews are getting getting their fair share of work right now as well. So as we go through this, we're trying to make that plan to bring in the right resources to make sure we're targeting that debris removal, making sure our roads are safe, the ones that have been underwater, making sure that those areas that the debris is covered, those bridges and tiles, that we can get that open and get this water moving. But at the same time, we got to make sure we're focused on this major interstates and thoroughfares as the snow comes in. So there's a lot of work to be done still.
Director Gibson, thank you for all you and your team have done so far and what you'll continue to do. We really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you all for getting the word out. We can't say enough how much we appreciate all of our media partners. You all do a good job of helping us spread this important information.
Krista, Paul, we'll send it back to you all in the studio.
All right, gentlemen, thank you.
And the water is rising here in Frankfort, like Vasi was just talking about in Hazard. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, in addition to those Hazard Water Service members and the crews working from across the state, you have 150 or so service members from the Kentucky National Guard, and as well from our conversation from Director of Kentucky Emergency Management, Eric Gibson, just a few minutes ago. He said there are also crews coming in from other states to help in the response and the recovery from this weekend's weather. There are currently 12 emergency shelters set up across the state in 9 different counties, those being in Breathitt, Harlan, Knott, Lawrence, Leslie, Letcher, Martin, Magoffin, and Wolfe counties. Several state parks are housing people impacted by the storms as well, including Ginny Wiley State Park, which has more than 140 people staying there. The state is also working with folks who have loved ones in hospitals that were evacuated. While the state remains in the response phase, emergency management officials are encouraging folks to take note of any damage they are experiencing.
Anyone that has damage, please document your damage. Before you start making those immediate repairs, document your damage, have that ready to present. We will be requesting that assistance on your behalf from the state to the White House. And as we do those things, we need to be able to paint that picture that shows how impactful this storm was to you and your family, or to your city, or to your county. And that process is very difficult. So document well, and as we'll be coming through and collecting those damage assessments after this event, after the rescue moves into recovery, we'll start that recovery process, and there will be a typical process of damage assessments, doing those things that are needed to take care of you in the long haul.
Now, I am in a parking lot off of Washington Street, which is just steps away from downtown Frankfort by the Paul Sawyer Public Library. For those of you familiar with this area, you know where exactly I'm standing. And you see the water is certainly coming to come up. You have this tree line here where usually you have no problem walking to from this parking lot. And then on the other side of it, you can kind of see it. There's a boat dock here. No boats there, obviously, because of how high the water is. That's just what we're seeing right now. And we turn over here, you see dumpsters engulfed in the water, and even further down as the sun comes up, signage getting higher and higher. You cannot walk in this area this morning, and you see it kind of off in the distance there. The water certainly getting closer and closer to the peak of the Singing Bridge in downtown Frankfort off Bridge Street. So be very, very careful as you go about this morning wherever you are. Live in Frankfort, Tyler Melito, Fox 56 News. That is certainly right, and we just received word that Governor Andy Beshear, along with the State Emergency Management Director and other officials, will be addressing the media at around 10 o'clock this morning to provide yet another update to the state's response to this storm. But as of right now, as at the time of this reporting, 9 people at least are dead, and Governor Beshear saying yesterday that he was pretty sure that we're going to see more deaths in the coming days as the response continues and people try to get rescued out of where they are. And speaking of rescues, there have been more than 1,000 water rescues. That's something that stuck out to me from my conversation with the Emergency Management Director, Eric Gibson, last hour, just how hard and how on all hands on deck the team is working here at the state level. Some people working pretty much straight on for 48 hours with minimal rest throughout the course of the last 2 days. The big message from officials right now is to avoid driving if you can. Emergency crews need clear roadways to be able to access some of the more remote parts of the state. In addition, the governor and state emergency management are asking people to avoid calling 911 unless they are in legitimate danger. If you are in need of a non-emergency assistance, you are encouraged to call 502-607-6665. Again, that is 502-607-6665. Some good news from the state officials is President Donald Trump has already granted federal assistance for these storms, something the governor says is going to be crucial these next few days.
Federal assistance is going to be absolutely necessary on the state and the local government side. Think about the damages that we're going to have to our roads, which we're already seeing, the mudslides, our water and wastewater systems. Those will all be in the millions.
And speaking of the damage to those roads, more than 300 state and federal roads are blocked or closed in some form or fashion, including the one I'm standing on right now, Kentucky Route 1211. Oh God, I almost just slipped on some black ice there. Be very careful this morning as we saw all the ice and snow from yesterday come in, but here's what you can see. I mean, look at all this. The water creeping up from the Kentucky River, which is just to my left, onto the roadway. You got also fallen debris from the trees and all the wind and the heavy rainfall and the snow. And it's not going to get any easier these next couple days. So be very, very careful as you're going out and about. If you do have to go out, if you don't have to go out, please, please, please stay at home. We are saying this not because it's just easy for us to say, we're saying it because we want you to be safe. We don't want to add any more numbers to that death toll. Live in Frankfort, Tyler Melito, Fox 56 News. And in addition to all those staff members from across the state responding to this emergency and this winter weather event, you have 150 or so service members from the Kentucky National Guard, plus crews from outside the state working to rescue people from the high waters and the freezing cold waters. It's important to note that we are experiencing across the state. And this is going to be a process that takes several hours, if not days. It may be even longer to help make sure everyone gets to a safe spot. Currently, the state has 12 emergency shelters operating in 9 different counties. Those include Breathitt, Harlan, Knott, Lawrence, Leslie, Letcher, Martin, Magoffin, and Wolfe counties. Several state parks are housing people impacted by the storms, including Ginny Wiley State Park, which has more than 140 people staying there. And the state is also working with folks who have loved ones in hospitals that were evacuated. While the state remains in the response phase, emergency management officials are encouraging people to document every piece of damage on their property.
Anyone that has damage, please document your damage. Before you start making those immediate repairs, document your damage, have that ready to present. We will be requesting that assistance on your behalf from the state to the White House. And as we do those things, we need to be able to paint that picture that shows how impactful this storm was to you and your family, or to your city, or to your county. And that process is very difficult. So document well, and as we'll be coming through and collecting those damage assessments after this event, after the rescue moves into recovery, we'll start that recovery process, and there will be a typical process of damage assessments, doing those things that are needed to take care of you in the long haul.
And for those of us who want to help the people impacted most by these flooding events, Governor Beshear and his staff have created the Flood Relief Fund, which you can donate to using the link inside the story on fox56news.com later on this morning. And they'll also be setting up distribution centers across the state to donate non-perishable food items and water and things like that. And I want to mention one more thing before we go. I'm at Riverview Park here in Frankfort, and this is just how high, this is the closest I've gotten to the water all morning, but how high the water has gotten. That tree line right there is about 20 or so yards away from me, and usually you could walk up to those trees. You see the little statue there, it looks all pretty and nice, but you can't walk there now, obviously. The river is supposed to start on the other side of those trees, the Kentucky River, that is. So just how high up it is going, well, the water is standing right there. That's where I was just standing a moment ago. So it's just very, very high. And if you are going out about, don't try to test the water yourself. If you don't want to go try to rescue someone, leave it to the professionals. This water is moving at a very high rate of speed. Chris. Good morning, Paul. I mean, it's hard to say good morning on this Monday because 9 Kentuckians at least are dead as a result of this weather event. And Governor Andy Beshear saying yesterday that he expects more people to be dead at the end of this whole recovery process. We hope not, but it is very likely given the circumstances. And it has been an all-hands-on-deck response from the state officials. More than 1,000 rescues have been done so far in response to this weather event. The governor says the big message from officials right now is to avoid driving if you can. Emergency crews need clear roadways to be able to access some of the more remote parts of the state. In addition, the governor and state emergency management are asking people to avoid calling 911 unless they are in legitimate danger. If you're in need of non-emergency assistance, you're encouraged to call 502-607-6000. 502-607-6665. Again, that is 502-607-6665. Some good news from state officials is President Donald Trump has already granted federal assistance for these storms, which Governor Beshear says will be vital in the recovery process.
Federal assistance is going to be absolutely necessary on the state and the local government side. Think about the damages that we're going to have to our roads, which we're already seeing, the mudslides, our water and wastewater systems. Those will all be in the millions.
And Governor Beshear will be providing an update on the state's response to these storms coming up at the top of the hour, and we will carry that live on Fox 56 News immediately after this 9:30 newscast. And I want to bring your attention to the water here that we are seeing in Frankfort. This tree line right behind me, that's usually where you could park at this parking lot by the Paul Sawyer Public Library. Unfortunately, as you can see, you cannot get to that, and that dock on the other side is usually right where the Kentucky River starts. So it is very, very intense, the amount of water that we're seeing even in Frankfort, and that's not even some of the hardest hit areas, as Vasi Prokos will mention in a moment. Live in Frankfort, Tyler Melito, Fox 56 News.